Against All Odds, My Story by Chuck Norris. That's what we're going to be talking a little bit about today. Not just the book, but a couple little stories about the book and what the book has done for me. Welcome to Coffee with Alain. I have my Korean Martial Art Festival mug again. I'll be talking more about the folks on this cup tomorrow, but I feel sort of bad that I'm not in Sault Ste. Marie, Canada, celebrating with them. Saw some pictures of the celebration that began yesterday, continues throughout this weekend for Sajanim Rudy Timmerman. Man, I greatly respect, a good friend for many years. We'll talk more about that tomorrow, though. Today, we're going to talk about Against All Odds, My Story by Chuck Norris. One of my favorite books in my collection for a couple different reasons that we're going to get to. Before I get to that, I want to thank everyone that watches, listens. I'm seeing more and more downloads on the podcast, which is awesome. I'm glad people are listening there. Just really appreciate everybody listening and sharing and commenting. Don't want people to forget that. So Against All Odds by Chuck Norris. If you like Chuck Norris, you know, this is a biography telling his life story. And so on the face of it, I have been a Chuck Norris fan since the 70s. You know, I remember when Good Guys Wear Black and A Force of One, the commercials on the TV had me so excited to want to see those movies, you know, seeing the previews. And then in the 80s, when I was in high school, you know, Force Vengeance was one of the 80s movies that really inspired me and motivated me to see Hong Kong. You know, after seeing that movie where Chuck Norris was in Hong Kong, was the setting of that movie, Force Vengeance. That's what really made me want to go visit Hong Kong. And I finally got to a few times. I've been to Hong Kong 3 or 4 times in my life. Love that city. And Chuck Norris's movie sort of lit that spark. And then Lone Wolf McQuade in the early 80s, also when I was in high school, just devoured that movie. So there have just been so many throughout the years that I've enjoyed. And so I've always been a fan of Chuck Norris. So it's cool to read about his life in this book. But what really makes this book special in my collection, well, it's signed by Chuck. You know, it's signed to my wife and I because we got to meet him. But there's something else special about this book, too. When we were in line at the book signing, you know, it was a book signing in California, and my wife and I went there. We're standing in line, and we're, you know, looking around. But it's like, wait, that's Howard Jackson, you know, pointing at the man standing beside Chuck Norris and his table. And so after Chuck signed this book, I went up to Howard Jackson and started talking with him. For folks that don't know, Howard was an excellent martial artist too, very close friends with Chuck Norris. If you watch some of the movies and Texas Ranger TV show, you'll see Howard Jackson once in a while. And when I was standing in the line and I told my wife that's Howard Jackson, she didn't know who it was. She's not a martial artist. So I flipped through the book and I found a couple pictures of Howard. And one of them is where Chuck Norris is kicking him in a movie. And so when I was chatting with Howard Jackson, I got to have Howard sign this book as well. A few years later, Howard left us due to cancer. And so this book was very special because it's signed by Chuck and it is signed by Howard Jackson, who then died of cancer not long after this. So that's one of the reasons it's very special in my collection. And then a few years later, quite a few years later, actually, because I had this signed, I don't know if it's dated, but this came out pretty early. This was 2004. This book was brand new. So that's when Chuck and Howard signed this, 2004. Fast forward up into 2020, I believe it was, or 2019 or 20. Might have been 19. I was at the SHOT Show because it was pre-pandemic. And Chuck Norris was there. And I had an opportunity to meet with him and talk to him about when Howard Jackson signed this book at the same time he did. And, Chuck Norris just lit up because talking about his old friend Howard Jackson, who was a great martial artist and a great fighter. So we just had a really nice, lively interaction, and talking about Howard and about martial arts. And Chuck Norris gave me one of his challenge coins at that time, and we actually got to have a picture taken together at that time. So it's just pretty cool how it came full circle. And it's still one of the special books in my collection because it's signed by both of those men, great martial artists and people that I had respected and admired their careers. Going to stop and say good morning to Jay and Vicky. Appreciate you guys joining this morning. Always do. Thank you much. But that book shows how, books can help us in other ways. I mean, being able to connect with Chuck Norris and talk about him and Howard signing the book years previous and bringing back those memories and so forth. I mean, books are wonderful. Don't neglect reading in your life. When I look at the statistics about who reads and who doesn't, sometimes I find it appalling. And people are missing out. You miss out all of the enjoyment and the education that you can receive from books. Read digital books, Kindle. I do. Read paper books. Those are my favorite. Listen to audiobooks. You can get those on cassette tapes if you still have a cassette player. I do because I still have a lot of cassette programs I like to re-listen to. CDs, I have a lot of those. Have CD players because I still want to re-listen to those. Or now you can do Audible and have them digital. Carry them around in your phone. I have Audible books in this one right here. Doesn't matter how you do it. Paper, Kindle, audio. Just get out and enjoy some books. Learn from some books. There's such a wealth of information at our fingertips. It's all there for the taking. Just get out and do it. Jay says big time. Hopefully, once in a while, I share a book that you'd like to listen to or read yourself, because a lot of these are on both platforms. Or hopefully, I just inspire you to go read something and learn about a topic that you want to learn about, or a story that you enjoy, or a person that you want to know more about, such as Chuck Norris, who was somebody that I enjoyed reading about his life and enjoyed meeting him because I respect the things he's done. And as martial artists, there's that connection. It'll be somebody else with you. If you're not a martial artist and a Chuck Norris fan, this isn't the book for you to read. Go get another one. That's what I do these for. To share, but also to inspire you to search out and read the books that you will enjoy, that you will learn from. And tomorrow, we're going to talk more about martial arts. We're going to talk about Sergeant M. Rudy Timmerman, who's celebrating this weekend, not only his birthday, but his 50-plus years in the martial arts. That's a long time to be practicing, training, and teaching. And he's a wonderful martial artist that has taught and influenced many people. We're going to talk more about him tomorrow. Until then, be sure to sign up for the newsletter. That's going out tomorrow too, and you won't want to miss it. Make it a super Saturday, and we will see you tomorrow.